Spider-Man and Superman are two of, if not the two, most famous characters in comic books. Spidey is Marvel's torchbearer, and depending on who you ask, Superman is DC's. So what happened when each company's flagship hero met? Well, let's find out. This is the story of Spider-Man vs. Superman. When we first meet Superman, he is battling a giant robot in Metropolis. After hitting the Man of Steel with an inertia ray, the robot attacks Metropolis's Star Laboratories and steals a computer console. Supes recovers and tries to attack the robot from underground. He notices that the metal behemoth is using a gravity ray to support itself. Superman drives the robot into the ground, to which it replies by turning its head into a missile. While our hero is distracted, the robot's pilot, Lex Luthor, makes his escape. After successfully stopping the missile, Superman heads for the Daily Planet and changes into his alter ego, Clark Kent. While watching a news report of his battle with the robot, Clark realizes he can trace the robot back to its origin by following its footsteps. He uses his supervision to find where the robot came from, which takes him to the bottom of Metropolis Bay. Superman finds an undersea lab that starts to move toward him as he approaches it. Supes makes his way aboard and is confronted by Luthor. Luthor attempts to trap Superman using lasers on the same spectrum as a red sun, which is one of Superman's few weaknesses. Superman manages to make his way through the web, but is blasted in the face by Lex. Lex uses this opportunity to send the device he stole earlier to an undisclosed location. After shrugging off the effects of the laser, Superman uses his I-beams to melt through the lab's bulkhead wall. Luthor is brought to jail and Clark Kent boards a plane to New York for the World News Conference. Meanwhile in New York, Spider-Man is on the hunt for some photographs for the Daily Bugle when he just so happens to come across a robbery at the Metropolitan Museum. After setting up his camera, Spidey takes care of the goons before their leader shows up, Dr. Octopus. Ock shows off his newest creation, the Flying Octopus, which he believes is the dawn of a new era in crime. Spidey disagrees and the two fight. Spidey has Ock on the ropes, but in a cruel twist of irony, Spider-Man is knocked out by the Flying Octopus. Dr. Octopus and his crew make their escape just as the cops arrive. Spidey comes to and flees. Peter brings the negatives to Jonah at the Daily Bugle and talks a pretty big game about how great the photos are. JJJ believes the hype and has his printing press operator take the best shot and plaster it all over page 1 without even checking them. This turns out to be a mistake. Jonah flips and kicks Parker out of the Bugle. While explaining to MJ what happened, Peter notices a blimp which sets off his spider sense. He gives MJ some lame excuse about needing water and heads for the blimp. Since he's out of web fluid, he has to do it the old-fashioned way. It turns out Doc Ock is using the blimp as a hideout, and Spidey was able to find him thanks to a spider tracer he planted on him earlier. The two battle again, but Spider-Man comes out on top this time. He leaves Ock for the cops and the next morning heads to the World News Conference with MJ, Jonah, and others from the Bugle. Dr. Octopus is shocked that Lex Luthor is being held in the same jail as he is. Guards are boasting about how secure each cell is, with each of them having an automatic video monitor complete with sound pickup. They also boast about how there's no way Luthor has smuggled anything in with him. Luthor asks Ock if he'd team up with him to take down their arch-enemies tomorrow. Ock agrees, but also laughs at Lex's insinuation that they'll be free tomorrow. Luthor did manage to sneak in some gadgets to get him out of prison. He concealed them under a layer of fake skin. One of the gadgets is a sonic disruptor, which he uses to take out the guards. Another he uses to allow Ock to regain control of his tentacles. The tentacles break open both cells, and after Lex gives Octavius earplugs, the two are on their merry way. Chapter 1: A Duel of Titans! Our heroes are taking in the World News Conference with their girlfriends. Peter is approached by Jameson, who's still sour about the pictures, but he stands up to old Triple J, while Clark turns the other cheek when his jabroni of a boss tells him he's too small time to be an anchor outside of Metropolis and blows smoke in his face. Lois has had enough of Clark's being a pussycat and storms off. She climbs a scaffold to try and get some photos of ComLab 1, the orbiting communications laboratory that's going to be launched later, but slips and is caught by Peter Parker. Turns out the photographer and reporter have heard of each other, with Peter asking if the Daily Globe needs a photographer. MJ gets a dose of the green-eyed monster when she's introduced to Lois, but she assures MJ that she has her eyes set on Superman, who arrives just as she says this. To the shock of all in attendance, Superman seemingly vaporizes MJ and Lois Lane before flying away. Peter and Clark are speechless. Pete can't find any phone booths to change into his costume, so he heads for the roof. With his webs donned, Spider-Man sets off to find Superman. Chapter 2: When Heroes Clash! The web-slinger finds the Man of Steel in no time, because Superman was looking for him as well. Superman seems to think Spider-Man had something to do with what happened to Lois and Mary Jane. Spidey is shocked by Superman's speed, who seems to be doubting the webhead's involvement with Lois's disappearance, while the real culprits, Luthor, just having removed the Superman mask, and Doc Ock are watching their plan unfurl. Knowing Spider-Man is no match for Superman, Lex fires a dose of red sun radiation to give the web-slinger a temporary power-up. Just as Superman is telling Spider-Man he feels this is all a mistake, Spidey replies with a punch that sends the Kryptonian flying. Superman looks to return the favor but is met with a web swing right to the face. Spider-Man starts to get a bit cocky since he's able to handle Superman so easily, considering all the stories he's heard about how tough Superman is supposed to be. This is Spider-Man's downfall. As he pushes the Man of Steel too far, Superman loses his cool, but just before he lands his punch, he comes to his senses and pulls it right before he connects. Even with Superman's restraint, Spider-Man is knocked across a few city blocks. Angry and still feeling confident, Spidey rushes back to give Superman a beating. Supes tries to get Spider-Man to talk, but he won't listen. Spider-Man hits a cartwheel dropkick and bounces right off his opponent. Not knowing his secret power-up is worn off, Spider-Man continues his assault, which, without red sun radiation flowing through him, doesn't affect Superman at all. Feeling like both his hands are broken, Spider-Man is finally ready to talk. The two quickly realize they've been duped and decide to team up and find out who's really behind this dastardly act. Chapter 3: The Call of Battle. Superman leads Spidey, who was web-skiing behind Superman for some reason, to the old Penn Central Railroad yard. The super imposter's energy residue, which Superman has been following since they left New York, led our dynamic duo here. Superman uses his X-ray vision to confirm this is the right place. Spidey is the first to enter the villain's lair. As soon as he lands, Spider-Man is subjected to a series of booby traps, machine gun floorboards, electrified walls, a red-hot ceiling, and a wire screen designed to slice Spidey to pieces. The web-slinger manages to survive the traps, and Superman, tired of waiting, makes his entrance. They find Ock and Luthor, who reveal that MJ and Lois are safe, for now. The heroes rush the bad guys only to find they were holograms. Spider-Man attempts to use the computers to trace the hologram signal, but Superman spots a booby trap in the computer and uses his super breath to move Spidey out of harm's way. I'm not sure why Spider-Man's spider sense didn't go off here, but hey, all seems lost. But Superman uses his super speed and photographic memory to reassemble the computer exactly as it was in the blink of an eye. Is there anything this man cannot do? Spidey traces the signal to Mount Kilimanjaro, and away they go. They ask some Maasai tribesmen if they've seen Ock or Luthor. They're brought to the tribe's elder, who will only help if he sees a sample of the famous Superman's powers. Happy with the display, they are brought to an area of the mountain where one of the tribe's warriors went missing. After inspecting where the warrior disappeared, Superman finds a hidden entrance. Spider-Man's spider sense, oh, it's working again, warns of danger, and the missing tribesman appears. He knocks their guide out and tears through Spidey's webs like paper. Spider-Man attacks but bounces off the warrior. Superman throws a punch, but he no-sells it. Luthor powered the guy up with red sun radiation. Superman has a plan. He uses his heat vision to change the chemical balance of Spider-Man's webbing to give it the consistency of steel, which the Mega Warrior is no match for. With that threat taken care of, the titular two make their way inside the mountain. Chapter 4: The Doomsday Decision. Spider-Man and Superman find Luthor's hideout and rocket silo empty. Lex is taking Doc Ock to the satellite headquarters of the Injustice Gang. When the villains board the satellite, which is where MJ and Lois were teleported to, Lex finally reveals the purpose of the circuit he stole from Star Labs. But before we find out, dear viewers, we must check in on Clark and Peter's bosses, Edge and Jameson, who are drinking together at a bar and discussing the similarities of their two employees. You would think one of them would put two and two together throughout this whole conversation, but no, dear viewer, they do not. They cut their conversation short to watch the launch of Prologue One. Back to our story. Luthor uses the circuit to take control of Prologue One and plans to hold the world hostage with it. He sends a high-intensity laser probe into Earth's atmosphere. Not long after, Superman and Spider-Man, who helped himself to one of Lex's spare rockets, I guess, arrive. Supes knows only he can handle the laser and heads towards Earth but is hit with another laser. Before Spidey can help his partner, his ship is hit and he blacks out. They wake up aboard Prologue One, and Lex shows them the damage the laser is causing on Earth. A super hurricane is raging across the Midwest of the United States, and Luthor will continue to grow the Storm Center unless the US government pays him $10 billion. Most of you probably are too young to get that reference. Spider-Man lunges at Luthor while Superman takes on Doc Ock. The villains disable the station's gravity, which gives them an advantage over the heroes. Superman is still reeling from the blast he took earlier, so Ock is able to knock him around a bit. Spider-Man's webs are useless in zero gravity, and our heroes collide with each other. Superman supermansplains judo to Spidey, and uses it to smack Doc Ock against the wall, who is just a normal man, remember. Not only does Doc lose 2 of his tentacles, he loses his glasses as well. But Lex comes to the rescue and returns the specs to his partner in crime. Octopus thanks Luthor, but is thinking about how he'll betray him once they get their ransom. Between punches, Spidey is trying to convince Lex to turn off the machine, but it's not working. Superman sees that a tsunami is heading towards the east coast of the States. He leaves Spidey to hold down the fort so he can try and stop the wave before it hits land. Ock grabs hold of Spider-Man, and Luthor states that his blackmail scheme has now turned to the goal of planetary destruction. Octavius didn't sign up for that, and smashes the control panel. As Superman approaches the monster tsunami, Luthor attacks Doc Ock, knocking him out. The Man of Steel uses his super speed to create a wall of sound that causes the tsunami to disperse, while Spider-Man takes Lex down. Later, Lois and MJ are back on Earth, Spidey and Superman go their separate ways with their respective enemies in tow, and Spider-Man shows his cockiness once again by referring to himself and Superman as living legends. Kent and Parker are super proud of themselves for setting up their cameras to catch all the action. Clark and Peter formally meet, but they hint they know what's up. They deliver the goods to their respective bosses, who tell the boys to have dinner on them. The 2 couples head off into the night to enjoy a meal on someone else's dime. This adventure took place on Earth 7642, otherwise known as Crossover World. In this reality, both Marvel and DC exist in the same universe, and it's where most of their crossovers take place. Superman vs. The Amazing Spider-Man is a fun, cheesy, wholesome read that harkens back to a simpler time in comics. We'd see Spidey and Superman team up again in Superman and Spider-Man and DC Marvel All Access, and there's 2 new comics coming out later this year. What do you think of the concept of Spider-Man vs. Superman? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.